It is Thursday, December 28th. We are fresh off of NFL Week 16. Well, excuse me, not fresh off of. We're a couple days off of NFL Week 16. It's going to be a quick show today. If you're a regular, you know we typically do this on Monday, post on Tuesday to get ready for the upcoming NFL week ahead. But due to the holidays and the new year coming up, we're going to make this short and sweet. What we're going to do is we're going to go over some of the big games and walk through the model projections for each one. And at the end of the show, maybe give some model picks on some other games as well. Not as much content, but still want to give out some info that we have from the model on some of the games for NFL Week 17. Lots of fun looking into Week 17 and lots of changes. We have some news about some quarterbacks that might need to be addressed, specifically with the Denver Broncos benching Russell Wilson. I think it's the right move, but yeah, we have a couple of those. We have some interesting storylines out of NFL Week 16 that we could potentially touch on. One thing that I want to address is I owe a public apology to the Baltimore Ravens. I was on the 49ers to win, not to beat the Ravens pretty badly, but I was certainly on the 49ers to win, and the Ravens proved me wrong in a grand way. They absolutely dogged the 49ers. So Ravens came out strong. They proved everybody wrong. I think a lot of people were on the 49ers, especially looking at some of the betting splits. The public lost a lot of money on that game. So kudos to the Ravens. The model projections went 10-6 against the spread, 63% last week. So some good stuff. We definitely want to review the model projections as well for the upcoming games. If you want to find our projections, we do both college football and NFL, and soon we'll be doing college basketball. So you can find that at Statletics_ on X, Twitter, whatever you call it. I call it Twitter. It's only right. It'll always be Twitter to me, I think. But you can find those at Statletics_. Make sure to give that a follow. We post the projections every week, and we'll continue to do so all the way through the regular and NFL postseason. So let's get into it. Lions go to the Cowboys. Cowboys are coming off of a tough loss last week. The Dolphins hit a field goal at the buzzer, beat the Cowboys outright. So a lot of people, I kind of expected Cowboys to win the model. And this is actually one of the misses, I think, in the model, if I remember correctly from last week. But again, we know how the Cowboys perform away, and we know how they perform at their home turf. This one's at home for the Cowboys. Lions, they're coming off of a win. They clinched the division. Good for them. That's a long time coming. It's been like 50 plus years for them. So Lions have some momentum coming in. They just clinched the division. Dallas, they need to get right. This is a get right spot. They're back at home in the Dome in Jerry World. I think this is a get right spot for them. If you look at the model projections, the spread is 5.5, 4.5 on some books. And the model has it right around 7.5, give or take. I think it's 7.47. Yeah. So the model loves the Cowboys this week, and I can't blame you. It takes in home field advantage. I think that we've seen some weakness by the Detroit Lions down the stretch. And let's be real, like they played a close game against a Nick Mullins-led Vikings team. Nick Mullins is no longer the starting quarterback for the Vikings. They actually just announced Jaron Hall. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But Cowboys, man, Dak has this is a perfect spot for Dak at home against this Lions defense, who's kind of let down as late. They started off hot. They were a good defense. They still have good metrics, but they're more so middle of the road on the defensive side of the ball than anything. So I expect a lot of points. The model's right around the point total that Vegas is giving out, but man, Dallas, I think this is get right spot for them, and I expect them to win handily. Now, quick, easy, moving on to the next one. Dolphins go to the Ravens. Again, we just mentioned the Ravens. Impressive win against the 49ers. I thought the 49ers, I still do to some degree, I thought the 49ers were the most complete team in the league, and I thought that it was really, I thought they were going to win out. Everybody's healthy. All of their skill players are healthy. The 49ers had no reason to lose this game, but shockingly, they lost. And not only did they lose, they lost by double digits. So you really see that out of this 49ers team. And I was just shocked by the way that this offense played. I think Kyle Shanahan is still working on a little bit of trust with Brock Purdy. As soon as they got down, I didn't see that many aggressive. I didn't see Kyle Shanahan's play calling amp up and become more aggressive when they got down and got down quick. So that raises some concern for me, because if the 49ers, if they get down in a certain situation, they're going to have to get aggressive with their play calling. They're going to need more out of Brock Purdy. And I've been an advocate for Brock Purdy for the past couple weeks now. I've seen a lot of hate. I've seen a lot of the dump off, to Debo and to Christian McCaffrey and let him run and pad his stats. And I get that. There's some validity to that. But Brock Purdy's still been efficient, and he's been running this offense, very well. Better than Jimmy Garoppolo could. That's a fair statement, So I've been impressed with Brock Purdy at times, but there's a level of trust I don't think that Kyle Shanahan's been able to fully put his trust into Brock Purdy. So the lack of aggressiveness in the play calling by the 49ers in that Ravens game was a little alarming. So I'm going to take a step back and reevaluate the 49ers. I still think they're one of the best teams. Their talent is too overwhelming for them not to go on and win games. That their talent matches anybody in the league. Ravens, good on them, man. I was down on them heading into this game. I picked the 49ers to win, but I think they just proved everybody they can hang with anybody. They have the team, they have the defense, they have the offensive weapons. Really, they have Lamar. I mean, truthfully, Lamar did almost everything. He led the team in rushing. Obviously he led the team in passing. He's the quarterback. But this was Lamar's show. And I mean, I've seen some stat comparisons with Lamar to other quarterbacks, and people are like, why is Lamar getting MVP consideration? Why is he the favorite? Well, look at what he does. And you account for the total stats, not just the passing stats, and what he means to this team. There might not be a player that is more valuable to their team and their success than Lamar Jackson is to the Ravens. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, get back to the game. Dolphins, fun win against the Cowboys last week. I enjoyed that game to the max. That was, truly one of the most exciting games of the week, even though it wasn't the highest scoring. So Dolphins, impressive win last week against the Cowboys, come in with a little bit of momentum playing against the Ravens. They're certainly going to need it. Unfortunately, for the Dolphins, this is at Baltimore. They play on the Ravens' home turf, which, never bodes well for many teams, but I certainly think they have the offensive capabilities, especially with Tyreek back on the field. They did lose Jalen Waddle, which kind of sucks. But again, Tyreek's on the field. They do have A-Chain back healthy. They will have every opportunity to create explosive plays. Explosive plays are one of the most important things in the NFL nowadays. It can truly flip a game right on its head. One play by Tyreek Hill or Devon A-Chain or whoever can flip the script at any given moment. Looking at the projections right now, we have a 2-point spread for the Baltimore Ravens, and I've seen it at 3.5 on Vegas. Kind of the consensus lines across some of the major books. So it doesn't surprise me. This game thinks it's going to be a little bit tighter than what Vegas is anticipating, but not by much. The thing with me is this could easily be the same type of ending that we saw out of Dallas and Miami last week. But I have a hard time thinking that the Ravens aren't going to ride that momentum from last week, bring it into their home field advantage, and capitalize on that experience. They have to hold on top of the 1 seed in their respective conference, and I think that they're going to truly continue to build off of the success that they've had. And so the key for Miami is they need explosive plays, and they need a lot of them. The key for Baltimore, don't let that happen and do your thing. They can expose this defense. They have all sorts of weapons. They can do it in the running game. They can do it in the passing game, the screen game, whatever they need to do. They have the weapons and the capability to do that. And so I like the Ravens to win here. Spread-wise, not really sure. But I will say this. Looking at the betting splits, there are some interesting numbers. 52% of the bets are on the Dolphins, but 52% of the handle is on the Ravens. So dead even. This always makes me, sends an alarm, because when you see dead even like that, when you don't see any line movement, it's like this truly is more of a pick even. And I think the 3 points go to the Ravens because of the home field advantage and the defensive nod that the Ravens get. So do what you will, but I like the Ravens to win. I like them to win handily and continue to build momentum as they head into the last week of the regular season and into the playoffs. Bengals go to the Chiefs. Let's talk about the Chiefs for a second. Well, actually, let's not. Let's talk about the Bengals. Embarrassing loss in Pittsburgh last week. I think this exposed their defense for what it was. I don't think this is necessarily a knock on their offense. They just got down quick and became very limited in what they could do. The Steelers' defense got more aggressive as the Steelers' offense put on more steam on the offensive side of the ball. But the Bengals' defense isn't good. They're actually bottom tier in most defensive metrics. They're 30th overall in EPA per play allowed as of last week. I'm sure it's even worse as of this week, but Bengals embarrassed. Now, do I think they can bounce back? Yes. I think they will play this game against the Chiefs a little bit closer, obviously without some of their star wide receivers or star wide receiver, Jamar Chase. It makes it a lot more difficult. They still have T. Higgins. They still have Tyler Boyd, and so I think they'll be fine. I think they'll play this game close. Without Joe Burrow, it's hard to say how close, but the Chiefs have struggled. Well, look at last week's game. They lost to the Raiders. I think the Chiefs aren't as bad as what they showed last week. I think there was some high variance, luck almost in that game with the Raiders. Aiden O'Connell didn't throw the ball a single time, or he didn't complete a pass a single time after the first quarter. And you can fact check me on that. Crazy enough. But Chiefs need to get right. Their offense needs to get right. They're begging for some playmakers. Travis Kelce looks old. You kind of feel bad for the guy. I think he has something going on, maybe an underlying injury. Who knows? But Chiefs, they need to come back. They need to bounce back. I do think they win. If you look at the model, 21-17 Chiefs, it thinks it's more of a 4-point spread rather than a full 7.5. Now, where this gets crazy, where this gets hazy is it's in Arrowhead. Now, projections do take into account here, what you see on the screen. Do I think the Bengals can do it? Certainly. But it's going to be hard for them to, especially when you consider the talent level of this Chiefs defense. You think about it, the Raiders' 2 touchdowns last week were 2 defensive touchdowns. One by a miscue on Patrick Mahomes' part and one by an errant throw on Patrick Mahomes' part. I don't think he's going to do that again. I think, in fact, I'm not agreeing with my projections. I'm giving them to you. Here's what they do. But I think that it's taking into some of, Patrick Mahomes' recent games where they couldn't get anything going on the the offensive side of the ball, especially with games like last week where you had some outlier plays that really don't represent this Chiefs offense for what it is. I think the Chiefs can actually win outright. I think they bounce back, and I think they use this game to take out some frustration. Andy Reid's going to have to get deep into his playbook. One of these wide receivers is going to have to step up. We're starting to slowly see Rashee Rice come into play in that aspect, but I think the Chiefs bounce back. This is one of the few times that I'm going to defy my model. I think the Chiefs win by 2 touchdowns. So we look at it, 42% of the total bets are on the Bengals. 78% of the handle is on the Bengals. So big money on the Bengals, but there's some potential sharp money on the Chiefs as well. So take that in consideration if you're into sports betting. But I think the Chiefs win by 2 touchdowns. I'm defying my projections. I hate doing it. I hardly ever do it, but I think I have to this time. Packers at Vikings. This one's a big one for both of them as they're kind of in the hunt, as we'd call it. I'm over that phrase, but it's what everybody knows. So Packers go to the Vikings. Vikings spread is all over the place. They just announced Jaren Hall as the starting quarterback. I've seen the spread at +1 for the Vikings. I've seen it at pick even, and I've seen it at -1 for the Vikings. If you look at the projections like the Vikings to win by 4. So with that being said, and again, I'll remind everybody, my projections don't take into account different quarterbacks, different whatever. There's strictly statistical analysis based on the performance of the teams this year. So, and we've seen a slew of different quarterbacks play for the Vikings. We've seen Kirk Cousins, we've seen Josh Dobbs, we've seen Jaren Hall for one drive, but he looked good that one drive before he got concussed at the goal line. However, there's too much variance in this to really trust the projections, so you're gonna have to go on a gut feel. With that being said, I still like the Vikings at home. The Packers have struggled as of late. They're certainly not. They were building momentum, but it's kind of tumbled as of late. They have some key injuries. It feels like their wide receiver core is never fully healthy. They're always trotting out their 2s and 3s. You know, we saw Romeo Dobbs and Dontavian Wicks were the 1 and 2 this past week. So gonna need some more out of the Packers, but I do like the Vikings here. I think Jaren Hall, for this tiny sample that we got, I think he will be a reasonable quarterback. He's certainly not going to be, well, maybe he comes out there and balls out. What do we know? But there's too much variance in this. If you're into sports betting, I honestly wouldn't bet this unless you have some insider information on Jaren Hall. But flipping back to the game, Vikings need this. I think at home, this is one of their biggest advantages. They can exploit Green Bay Packers team. If you look at the defensive stats for the Packers at home versus away, it's a wide difference. It's huge. Also, take in mind Jair Alexander got suspended, of course, and that means Justin Jefferson's going to run wild against this team. So I trust Kevin O'Connell's play calling abilities against this Packers defense that's missing their top cornerback, especially with his elite wide receiver back. I think the Minnesota Vikings pull this one out here, and I think they win outright. I'm going to trust a little bit of what the projections say, and I'm going to trust a little bit of my intuition and the matchups and looking at the defensive stats 1-to-1. Also, Brian Flores, defensive coordinator for the Vikings, deserves a ton of credit. He is truly using the same, very similar roster to the Vikings last year, where the Vikings rated as a top or a bottom tier defense. They were ranked like 30th, 31st, 32nd in really every defensive metric that really mattered. And he's flipped the script and turned them into a top 12 unit. So credit to him. I trust him to generate pressure at home against this Packers offensive line, who's been really shaky at times. I expect Kevin O'Connell's play calling to really exploit this defense that's missing their top cornerback. I like the Vikings to win outright this week, and I'm going to trust the projections this time around. So that's it for our big games. Again, we mentioned it's going to be quick. Let's go through the model picks real quick. Cowboys -4.5. We already talked about that. I think they win by a touchdown or more. Rams -5.5 against the Giants. We've hit twice in the past 2 weeks on the Rams in terms of model best bets. We got them against the Commanders. We got them last week. And then final best bet, Bucks -2.5. The model really likes the Bucks. They like them by 4.5, nearly 5 points against the Saints rather than 2.5, especially at home. And the Saints, they just feel like they're crumbling. So I like the Bucks. I like the momentum that they're building. I like their defense at home, and I like the way Baker Mayfield's playing right now. You know, nobody's grading higher than him in the past couple weeks. He's been a top 10 quarterback in terms of EPA. The past couple weeks, he's been, making good decisions, and so. Why stop now? Why not trust it? So, Bucks, model best bet, third of the week. Guys, we appreciate you joining us. We're sorry about the late show and the quick show. We will be back next week with the full show back to normal after the new year has started. We'll talk to you guys next week.